Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, and welcome to The Nature Connection, Science, Wildlife, and Environment Radio, with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy.
Hey, everybody. Welcome. It is June 24th, 2022. And welcome to Big Blend Radio's Nature Connection show. We are airing live. Even last month we were airing live with this show. And you know, a lot of times we're recording via Zoom and everything, but you never know what's going to happen because, as you know, Nancy and I travel full-time across the country documenting parks and public lands. Last month, where were we, Nancy? Do you remember where we were?
No.
We were in Linwood, Washington last month. And since then, we've been to Lubbock, Texas, Fayetteville, Arkansas, and today we're in Kansas City. So we did go to Kansas City, everybody, and we're here in an area called Prairie Village, and it's beautiful. We've got some of the biggest oak trees and trees I have ever seen. I mean, it's incredible. It's beautiful. So that's where we are today. And, you know, we're doing these shows. You know, this year is a big year for us at Big Blend. We're 25 years old in this country with our Big Blend magazines, all digital now, all started as print back in the cut and paste days. I don't know. Some people may not even know what that means. But anyway, back in the day when magazines were printed, and 15 years for Big Blend Radio and 10 years of us traveling on our Love Your Parks tour, documenting parks and public lands. So we're inviting old friends, new friends on live shows as part of our anniversary celebrations. I encourage you to keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. And every fourth Friday, we host the Nature Connection Show. It's a collaboration with our friend Margot Carrera, who's a fine art nature photographer. Hopefully she'll join us today. But, you know, this is something about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. Nancy, we went to Erie, Pennsylvania, home of a very popular state park called Presque Isle, known for its beaches, its history, its natural biodiversity. And we stayed there, and we went because we connected with Steve and Lisa over at Spencer House Bed and Breakfast in this just historic district. They have an amazing historic bed and breakfast. And, you know, we were looking at all the things we could cover. And, of course, this was, you know, COVID times. And so we're running around with our masks on. We still do that today. And one of the places that we found out about was not only Presque Isle and, of course, the Wine and Brew Trail, right? And we found out about wineries, breweries, public art. And listen, this is you've got to go to Erie, and this is definitely a time of year to go. But we heard about Asbury Woods, and we took a trip out there and went and found out about their environmental center, their nature center, which is award-winning and an incredible. They have the best roof garden ever, but there are also over 200 acres of forest and meadows and just wildflowers, and it's an amazing place. And we, you know, talked with Jennifer Farrar, who's the executive director, and you know, I'm getting all their press releases, and they seem to have a whole bunch going on. We're like, dude, we have to connect with them again and find out what's going on because there's meadow restorations, all kinds of good things. And so we're going to welcome Jennifer back to the show. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing well. Thanks for connecting again. And It's another beautiful day in Erie, PA, 75 degrees and blue skies. So
wow.
It is definitely the time of year to visit Erie.
Oh, that is beautiful. That's some nice weather, you know. We arrived on my birthday in Erie and caught a sunset at Presque Isle, and it was just like, what? This is unbelievable. And you do feel like you're at the ocean. It feels like a beach town. I know it's a city, but it feels like a beach town to me. But then you wouldn't think that when you go to Asbury Woods. You're like, how did that happen? You know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah. It's a lot is packed into a little area that you can experience when you visit here.
It's amazing. Amazing. I want to bring our guest co-host, Margot Carrera, who we do the show with every fourth Friday, back on the show. Margot is an amazing nature photographer, and I encourage you to go to our website, CarreraFineArtGallery.com. Margot, how are you? Are you in sunny San Diego? You never know. She could be traveling somewhere. How are you?
Hi there. I am
at home in sunny San Diego, and it's a beautiful day here.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, good to be with you all.
Hey, it's good to have you back on the show. I'm glad you know what, we're having a stormy day in Kansas City, and it's nice and cool compared to what we're going to get tomorrow. I'm just going to say that now.
Cool is a blessing.
Rain is good. Rain is good, and we want more for the Southwest, and California definitely needs more. Just keep sending it that way. Let's go over to Asbury Woods. Jennifer, this is the thing. We talk a lot about environmental education. We look at what's going on with climate change on the show, and we also talk about conservation. And I think it's very interesting how Asbury Woods was founded, because you can go hiking in the woods. There's lots of trails, and it's beautiful. But I just remember when we were there and you were talking to me, Nancy, and telling us about the history, and some of these trees were planted. And weren't some of the founders of the organization itself actually involved in the paper mill industry? And this is kind of the beginning of this amazing project, which is Asbury Woods.
Yeah, absolutely. The gentleman who owned the original parcel that became Asbury Woods, he and his brother owned a paper mill here locally, Hammer Mill Paper Company. They had emigrated here from Germany with their father and started this paper company because Erie, being right on the lake, had a resource they needed, which was plentiful fresh water. So he owned, this was his sort of cottage and farm outside the city. He lived in downtown Erie, and we're west of the city, and this was his cottage and farm. And while he did have some animals and things here, he also planted just a ton of variety of trees as they were sort of doing some experiments for their paper mill. And he donated, upon his death, he donated his farm, Asbury Farm he called it, to a local school district. And his will says, I'm donating it to the Mill Creek Township School District for recreational and educational uses. That was 1957, so a lot has changed in that time, with additional parcels being added to it over the years, and ownership changing from a school district to our nonprofit, which is conservation and education minded. But to this day, we still honor that original intent of that gift of being for outdoor public recreation and in education. So it's really kind of a fascinating story, and really ties into the history of Erie. I mean, they were huge industrialists and made a huge impact, he and his brother, on our entire city for the years that they were here.
Yeah, I think that's what's so interesting about Erie. I mean, there's that one section when I think Nancy and I, it was really Pennsylvania that opened our eyes, having been in the West so much on our tour at that time. It was Pennsylvania just as a state. And then when we got to Erie, the Industrial Revolution just hit us like a ton of bricks, literally, because we do have a ton of bricks in that one district. And we're like, wow, this is like the whole Carnegie thing. That whole history is right there. And it's amazing to see how Erie, I know like the Hagen House and the Hagen History Center, how the History Center really preserves and interprets the history, and then also Presque Isle with, and then just, going through the downtown. I mean, the history is incredible, but the Industrial Revolution, and then you go, oh, but listen, we're still part of nature. And I think that is something very unique, because a lot of times those kind of communities, they could be left off the grid in regards to protecting nature. So I think that was pretty amazing. And Pennsylvania as a whole
it is amazing that we do still have, and our Asbury Woods is, it's pretty amazing that we have this acreage that is basically plopped in the middle of suburbia, and we've been able to protect it and conserve this land, for wildlife and, and plant species and of course human use as well. So it's pretty neat that, as the city expanded and moved out from that city center, that thanks to, the thinking of people who planned ahead, like Otto Barron, that it was preserved, and we were able to maintain that and be this incredible resource.
It's actually funny. We were talking about you on a show about 6 months ago. We had a gentleman on, and he wrote the book Burning Ground, and it's about the history of Yellowstone National Park, because this year is the centennial of Yellowstone being a national park and the history of it. And he, was a docent there, but he was in the paper mill industry. And he started talking about Pennsylvania. I'm like, hey, have you been to Asbury Woods? He knew exactly where you were. Like,
Oh, yeah.
This is so funny. I know. It's just so funny. We're like, we had this whole conversation about you, and I'm like, oh, my gosh, I hope I'm remembering everything right. Jennifer, tell me. So this part reason why you're on the show today, to just, make sure to fact-check this.
Oh, that's funny.
And it was so funny because he's part of that industry, and through that he also learned about conservation, because I think that's something we don't realize, when you have these big industries about the restoration part, the conservation, because we may, as, some of us who would go, oh, we're making paper, so therefore are we not giving back into replanting trees? And so it's good to see you turn for the trees. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For how Asbury Woods is now. The Education Center is kind of like the nucleus. I'm just going from what Nancy and I experienced when we went there. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of residents and visitors that come, will take, go out and hike and everything, because you can go all year round. Go snowshoeing in the winter, but when we were there, it just really seemed like the Education Center is like the hub, the nucleus of what makes everything work, especially for youth.
Yeah, I'd say that a lot of our, definitely for kids and families who are visiting in our school groups, the Nature Center is definitely sort of the hub of activity. But what's really neat is that we have this whole other segment of people who use our property, and they probably never set foot on the 50 acres that surround the Nature Center, because they're just out doing their own outdoor recreation and just use the trails, and they never even I'll talk to them all the time. Oh, I haven't been in that nature center in 20 years. But they're just coming and enjoying the trails on their own. They're hiking, they're mountain biking, they're walking their dogs, they're taking their kids down to wade in the creek on a summer day. So we really have a variety of users, and we always say, well, we capture all these numbers, all this data on how many school kids and how many people came to a community festival and how many came to a public program about rain barrels or owl prowls. I said, but take whatever that number is and probably quadruple it, and that's the number of people we never see or never know that we're here. They just come and use the trails, and we're so happy we can provide that resource that it's just free and open to the public to do so.
I think when people get to have that opportunity, they also become better stewards of the land and protecting it, right? So, like if somebody said, hey, we want to come build a bunch of homes on those 200 acres, I think you're going to find that you're going to have this big mass of people saying no.
Well, that's exactly how it came to be that Asbury Woods, the nonprofit, owns it, the Mill Creek Township School District. I mean, I give them all the credit in the world for maintaining this for several decades, but it was getting to the point where they couldn't really justify on their budget maintaining a nature center, 200 acres of property, a working sugar shack, a historic barn. It just, it doesn't make sense necessarily for a school district to be in the conservation business. And so they were like, are we going to sell parts of this? And luckily at the time we had some leadership who, they were sort of a support group, helping with some projects. They said, you know what, we can't lose Asbury Woods. We have like one shot at this to raise the money and buy this from the school district and make sure it's a land trust and it's conserved forever for the people of Erie County and for visitors. And so, yeah, I mean, when there was a threat of it being lost and sold and developed, the amount of community support that came out of the woodworks, lawn signs everywhere, save Asbury Woods, and they made it happen so that here we are. Now the nonprofit owns it, and the land is protected.
When you live in a city, not a small town, but city, you really need relief. You need the wildlife areas like this and the trees and everything to make living in the city more fun, more beautiful, more healthier, for sure, healthier. You can't just have concrete everywhere all the time. That'd be so boring. Just think how boring.
Yeah, boring.
Boring.
Yeah,
monotonous and boring. Yes, I need to see the changing seasons, the colors and the leaves and
I remember that
flowering plants. Yeah,
part of the conversation when we saw you when we went to the woods is like you're saying, no, we get out all 4 seasons here. We have the fall. Listen, we did experience fall that year in Pennsylvania, and then next year. And listen, you guys do get cold, and but we did it. And the fall colors in Pennsylvania, holy cow!
Amazing.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Seriously, you could just sit on a bench and drool at this. It is incredible. Yeah. So, I can imagine in winter. I've seen photos too on your site, and and I'm like, oh, look at this. You really can go 4 seasons. And what I really loved too, when we were there, you just completed a trail system right outside the education center, the nature center, and it's ADA compliant, right? So if you're in a wheelchair or moms with strollers, you can get out there. And so you're like saying, there's no excuse to get out in the woods. Play. Not that it's an excuse. That sounds bad. I didn't mean it that way. But you're open to everyone.
That's what we're trying to do. Everyone, even if you have some mobility issues, some of my favorite people that I've run across on that boardwalk, and it is beautiful. It's 8 feet wide. There's handrails. There's the ramps. It's beautiful. But I've run into people who, they're longtime nature lovers and enjoyers. They've walked the trails for years. And then, they need a hip replaced or a knee replaced, right? And so instead of walking around their house or their neighborhood, they're coming and using our boardwalk. They're like, because at least here, my doctor says I need to walk, I need to move. And they're out there on that boardwalk, because there's a railing and they can have their walker, whatever. They're like, I need to move. And it makes me so much more motivated to come and do it here at Asbury Woods on this boardwalk, because I'm walking through the trees.
Yeah,
it's so incredible.
Helps. Yeah, nature helps. I want to go to Margot because I feel very sad that she's on the show and she hasn't been to Asbury Woods yet. I feel like this is so mean. We're like, we're
I'm drooling here.
I know, because it is so beautiful. And listen, we've tasted what comes out of that sugar shack, and you guys gave us little samples, and it was really good. I'm just saying. But Margot, we always talk about, who's coming on the show, what the focus is on the show. What are your, views of this? I know you've looked at the website and everything. When you look at it and looking towards what can we do for the environment today, what would you say from the outside perspective, having not been there yet? I'm going to put a yet on there because you never know with Margot. She'll go where there's flowers and trees and nature. What are the things that you think, look positive? Is it from the education side with kids and adults? Or the recreation?
I was just listening to what she was saying about the boardwalk and a place where somebody, either on a wheelchair or a walker or somebody that just really needs to get in nature to feel the healing forces there and just feed their soul is what I when I go in nature, I'm literally feeding my soul. I feel wonderful. And when I heard you say that, I was so, so pleased because just this past year, I had lost my ability to walk for a short period of time, about 6 months. And all my life has been with my camera, going out in nature and taking pictures and hiking, and not being able to do that was hard on me. And so the thought that, I could go with my family, even if I can walk now, by the way. Thank God.
Goodness, yeah.
It's been a long haul, but
I'm sorry, but 6 months. You say, short time, 6 months. I'm like, dude, if you did that to me for a day, I'm in trouble. Seriously.
It was a rude awakening, and I did very, very much miss nature, and I did very much need it at that time. And it would have been very healing I had it. But the fact that you have it available for people is huge, and I just want to honor that you've taken that step and thought of those who may not as easily be able to hike, and it makes me very happy.
Yeah. I think there is a healing quality, and Margot, your husband, Jorge, Dr. Jorge Carrera, is integrative health. That's his main focus. Have you seen through his practice, and I know you've also worked with his patients and know them? Does the power of nature ever come into play in integrative health?
Oh, absolutely. And because I'm going through what I'm going through, I have metastatic breast cancer, but I'm moving through it quite nicely. And sometimes I, fall back. But so I have a lot of time in the medical centers, and when we had our integrated wellness center, I used all of my nature photographs for all the waiting rooms, all the doctors' offices, and then I would play this, tranquil music, and I noticed that the seniors were coming and coming early. They were sitting in the waiting room and they were chatting with each other. It was like a community, and one man came up to me once and he said to me, he says, just walking in and sitting in here is, I can feel myself starting to heal. And so the environment that you're in, if it's clinical, it brings up anxiety in people, I think. And but the minute you see nature on the wall, it has this wonderful calming effect. So
I agree.
Yeah, that's one reason I do what I do, is the beautiful healing effect that nature has.
Can we get rid of white coats? Doctors wearing white coats. That's what I think needs to go out the window.
Yeah. My blood pressure goes up when I see that.
As soon as you see the white coat, you want to bolt.
I'm married.
You can't walk. You want to out. It's like, and then, it's like, I don't know why the white coat thing even started, because, like, if there's bleeding involved, now it's on the white coat. That does not look good for a patient, right? It's like, I know, but it's true. Sorry, I think
it was for their protection, actually.
I think it was that, and also
bleeding.
Cleanliness, to prove that they're clean, and all of that. But still, listen, it's 2022. We can have pretty patterns on the clothes now. So, Jennifer, have you had any health groups go out ever? Or if not, do you see that in the future for Asbury Woods?
Yeah, we do have here. We have a lot of groups who come and use it on their own. So we have quite a few, groups that serve, mental health patients and population, and they kind of come out and use it on their own, and take walks. We have done some things with a local children's behavioral center, those kinds of things. And, we've talked about it a lot of ways that we could do more in that area, but it tends to be people doing it a little more informally on their own than rather wanting a present some formal program kind of thing.
Sometimes that's even more difficult, especially on the mental health or there's different groups that are kind of like we just need to go and have that avenue. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing, with your center too, you've got the indoor center, and I love that you have bees. And I'm serious, that roof garden took me up to the top where I got to go and see the roof garden from the top. Like I have all these photos of it. I'm going like, you have a mini prairie going on. Like you wouldn't even know, So there's all these facets. And I remember you saying, no, we're not quite a garden thing. But I'm like, but you're this big garden. It's so beautiful here with roof gardens and things. So it's kind of like when we were there, what I really got out of it was that you showed the full cycle of nature. And you've got to think, and even your website, when you go into the history section of the website, you talk about, like, Asbury Woods doesn't start with the people. It starts like hundreds and thousands of years ago.
Right, yeah.
Which I love because we forget that part of natural history. But you really show this web of life, the connectivity. So when kids go in, they understand the symbiosis and how different organisms interact with each other and how they benefit each other. So if one species goes away, how that would negatively impact the web of life. I think that you do a really good job of that, and then being able to go outside and take a walk or a stroll or, go see the wildflowers. That we did that one trail. It was just all these wildflowers I've never seen before. And we did get a bunch of mud on our shoes for our next appointment, but we didn't really care. That's how we roll. Don't ever ask Nancy and I to look decent for anything at any time. We pet sit and go in parks, and that's that. But just I think there's this really full perspective, and I think you actually do need to go more than once to get it all in because you've done so much so well there.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, we do have kind of the full spectrum. We have some areas that are, very purposeful, sort of cultivated gardens. Then we have some garden areas that are very wild and natural. And then, of course, it rolls into forest areas, and there's wetland areas and a whole creek watershed that, Walnut Creek, which is a major tributary of Lake Erie, goes through our property. And so it has this great opportunity to talk about, how what happens on our property and through that Walnut Creek watershed, how that affects the larger, health of the lake. So there is a lot of lessons to be learned here, and it takes you could just take it in. I mean, I take it in every day, right? And I'm still learning about it. So.
And Linda looks very healthy and happy. She does. That's like an awesome office. You can't beat that. But you're also doing all these programs and projects. So let's go into so you can go to the nature center, right? So people, visitors, and locals can go take a hike. You don't have to check in anywhere. You can just go hike on your schedule. Just be nice to the trails. Actually, you know what I have to say? Going back to nature and the health part of it, when we were on the trail, we pet sit, so we're always with animals. We met a lady with a 3-legged pit bull that she had rescued who was blind, and this pit bull, so sad, it was born that way because of bad breeding by certain groups that I won't get into, but it's something that does actually happen. There's just bad puppy mill kind of things. And so she rescued this dog, and she's like, the dog was completely hairless. I mean, the story was insane. Like, this dog is still alive. This is a miracle. But she was taking the dog into the woods every day so that it could use its other senses because of being blind. So it could sniff, use its senses, and actually build up its body to still be able to walk and be 3-legged. And it was amazing to see that dog be so happy. And he had, with other brothers and sisters, not necessarily biological, but with him. But, I mean, this dog's part of its life story is Asbury Woods and healing. And there was like one, I don't know if they're all pet-friendly, but that one portion, maybe it's not, is it pet-friendly? Because she's been going there all the time, and you better let her.
Our trails are pet-friendly, yes.
See, the dogs are agreeing right now.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes my dog's in my office with me some days, so we're very pet-friendly. Yeah.
I know, that's so funny. The dogs here just start barking. They knew we were talking about the dogs.
They were like, wait, no.
Yeah. But I don't know if you've seen the lady with her dog, but, I mean, this was like quite a story when we were there. We're like, wow, we always think so much about us humans, right? And here's this dog regaining or actually gaining life force by going to Asbury Woods. So there's so many benefits of having natural places for humans and pets and, all those, and for all the natural habitat. But the Education Center, tell us a little bit about the main programs that you have with youth and what can someone experience at the Education Center, and then for the different seasons too.
Yeah, I mean, each season we publish just a ton of programs that we do. Some of them, you pay a nominal fee. Some of them you have to register for, and some are just drop-in kind of things. So, we do nature safaris and pond safaris and owl walks and rain barrel building and compost bins. I mean, we do all those kinds of things. We do dog walks. We have organized dog walks in case people want to, get their dogs used to being, friendly and know how to be around other dogs and other people. With organized dog walks where you can show up with your dog and hike with a group of people. So we do all kinds of programming like that. I think you mentioned the snowshoes. During the winter we lead clinics on how to ski, cross-country ski, and how to use snowshoes. And we have a rental program, so if you want to come and try it, you can rent them and use them on our property. And then we do, some
Lisa do that.
Thanks, Nancy.
And we try and do some, seasonal projects. Like for right now, we own a historic barn on the one end of the property, and so this summer the exhibit is a photography exhibition. So we ask community members to submit their photos that they had taken on our property. And we had sort of a jury and some local members of the photography club and have this beautiful exhibit. And it really is fun to see. It's called Through Your Eyes, so it's through the public eyes, how they see Asbury Woods. And so there's everything from pictures of insects to birds to people to the creek, every season. And I think it just really captures, that Asbury Woods experience is whatever you want to make it and how you see it. So, we have that going on each summer. We typically have done an exhibit of some sort.
I love that because when people do photography, and Margot, I know Margot would second me on this, you start to observe and you'll take photos of plants. You come back and look at it, and this is the beauty of Instagram and everything, too. You're like, what is that? And so I love that you're doing that, and I have to thank you because I'm still part of iNaturalist. I'm way behind on my map, but I'm still mapping all the critters and plant species on iNaturalist through the Seek app. And Jennifer is the one who got me, and I'm like a sucker on it. It's terrible. And I mean, some of the stuff is used, some of these photos you upload to there actually get used for biocitizenry or whatever, citizen science and projects. And I actually have friends who have a bed and breakfast in Arkansas. There's photos of hummingbirds and barred owls, and then they got registered into some science thing, and then a whole bunch of scientists came to the B&B to study their hummingbirds.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is all because I'm telling, we're all talking outside with Jennifer, and I'm like, kids are addicted to their phones, and there's this. She goes, no, well, over here we use them as a positive thing, and this is how we use them. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. So, I just
we've really tried to integrate in our in our school-based programming because we have, we're trying to recognize that these don't have to be exclusive zones, right? Let's recognize the fact that if kids are coming, they're going to have their phone, so how can we use it? And so they can take pictures, and that's one way to appreciate. They can use, these apps like Seek and all kinds of other citizen science things like eBird. We can use our phones as our compass, right? I mean, how many Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts really learn to use a compass? Well, most likely it's your phone compass you're going to have with you, right? So, let's talk about in real terms how these don't have to be mutually exclusive. It can be compatible to use technology as part of your nature experience and part of learning more about nature. So
That's smart.
Sure.
It's smart because we tend to, as human beings, do all or nothing. And I really learned that. You really changed my mind on that when we came there. I was like, oh yeah, use what is now, just use it in a different way. It's how you utilize it. And that's, I think, the story of the land too. And so you've got all these programs, and you mentioned the barn, but you have these meadows. Because do you have more than one meadow that you're restoring? Or am I? Because I could swear you've done more than one restoration project, or is it the same meadow, and it takes time to restore?
So right now we're just doing one meadow area. We have two sort of meadow areas on two different parts of the property. One is, well established and functioning, and we kind of can keep it under control ourselves. Another area of the property, and it goes back to when it was still owned by the school district, had really been let go for so many years that it was really going through sort of that natural succession process where much more woody shrubs and bigger trees were becoming established. It was getting overrun with some invasives like multiflora rose. And so, if we kept letting it go, we would have had, essentially another forest area on our hands in a certain number of years. And, we have plenty of forest here. We wanted to keep an established meadow area for birds and small mammals and butterflies and bees and all the things that benefit from that meadow habitat. So, it's hard because it's pretty drastic when half of it is cut down right now. It's a really drastic maneuver. But the goal long term is that it gets back to a meadow that we get rid of a lot of that multiflora rose. We can reseed it with native grasses and wildflowers, and then it can be something we can maintain on an annual or semi-annual basis, and sort of keep back the forest. We have plenty of forest, and we're committed to try and maintain a diversity of habitats within our acreage. So, so that's what that meadow area restoration is all about right now.
Wow.
And it's going to take us several years, to get there. Several years.
It can't be overnight,
No.
Something like that. And so are the public able to view the progress or connect with it so they understand those different stages?
Yeah, so we have, the trails adjacent to it. There's grassy trails, so it's kind of like if you could picture sort of 4 quadrants where there was grown-up areas and then we mow some grass in between as the trail. So people are still able to walk on those grassy trails, and we have a ton of signage up that just says restoration in progress with a QR code. So as the project progresses, every time you scan the QR code, if there's an update, of what stage we're in, it'll take you to the latest information on the project.
That's awesome.
But we're just at stage 1. We're only 2 weeks into stage 1, so.
You know what? I remember when everyone says QR codes aren't going to do anything, and now look, during COVID, that's how you could order your food. And now, we're seeing more and more of that in conservation and for parks, especially because a lot of parks don't have the staff, funding issue-wise. And it's like, put a QR code up, and you can take these interpretive tours and learn stuff. We're interviewing a tea company, Nepal Tea. You can order their tea, and the tea comes packed, and you look at the QR code, scan in the QR code, and you can see who packed the tea in Nepal.
Right.
It's amazing.
That's incredible.
I just want to say, for all you naysayers of QR codes, look at them now. They're shiny and happy. I love that. Marco, I wanted to go back to you on this. You're a big part of why we do this show. Any questions or comments on what they're doing in Asbury Woods other than you need to go?
The only question that came to mind is getting local universities involved in your conservation work. It's more of a suggestion, because then it opens up their studies and their understanding, and they have hands-on learning that they can take out in the world, because this next generation is going to be working with that. Restoration, conservation. So I was just asking if you have any connection with junior colleges on this area.
Yeah, we do have a couple. It's something on our radar that we could do more and some more formalized things, some more formalized programs. But we do have, in particular, one local university who currently owns a section of the property.
Oh, wow.
And we're in the process of purchasing it from them, because we've maintained it all these years, but they own it, and part of our trail system goes through it. So we are working. We have a Department of Conservation and Natural Resources grant that we received, and we're working on our local match fundraising to purchase that property from them, because once we own it, it will be a part of our land trust and conserved rather than the university owning it. They could sell it or anything. But anyways, because they have owned that property, they use it pretty extensively with their students, and there's some of their professors have some long-term research projects going on the property that they bring their students out to every year. So we do have some of that happening, like I said, particularly with that university, since we have such a strong connection with them.
Excellent.
That's cool.
Excellent.
I love that because I think that's the thing is you've got such a it's Asbury Woods is for all ages, but I really love that you're also doing the young kids and getting them engaged on the level what they can understand so that they can foster that for their life, as they move forward. With everything that's kind of going on, not kind of, is happening in the world, for kids right now, I think it's a very stressful time. I really do. And as I look at teens as well. The pandemic, how do you explain a pandemic?
It's scary.
And all of that's happening with death and all of that and school shootings. And, I think these places like Asbury Woods allows like a sense of like healing if you need it, but also this sense of discovery and excitement when you may question, why am I here when everything's going crazy around me? And for youth, it's a scary thing. And I think even adults are having a hard time. What do we do what do we say? How do we, deal with all of this? And climate change is a scary thing for kids, depending on their age and understanding, of course. So when you go to a place like Asbury Woods and get your hands in there, I think that really helps, doesn't it?
I mean, absolutely. When you're talking about like our kids and sort of, with the pandemic, the disruption to their lives and what a kind of scary and confusing moment things are right now, especially for kids. I think about last week. So, I'm the executive director. Most of the time I'm in the office, managing all these projects and people and HR and all those things. But a couple weeks during the summer, sort of one of my pet projects is we started this Trailblazers camp a couple of years ago where the kids bring their mountain bikes, and it's for middle schoolers. We spend the week hiking and biking on the trails. And so last week was one of my 2 weeks where I get to play camp counselor, and I had 13 middle school boys. It just happened they were all boys this particular week.
Go, girl.
It's great. But, we spent the week hiking, biking, playing in the creek. We did we did a trail maintenance project. We built like a corduroy section over an area that's really muddy. And I kept teasing the kids. I'm like, you didn't even realize your parents signed you up for, and I'm now using you for child labor here. I'm making you work. But they're carrying logs and they're, stuffing the mud in between the logs, and they're using shovels and rakes and tools. And it was just, I'm like, this is what it's all about. This is what this is what these kids need. They're just out here, they're working together, they're playing together, and they're just being kids. They're laying in the creek, letting the creek wash over them. They're like, they go across the creek bank and they made up like 2 different tribes, basically. They just had so much fun being outside. They're figuring out how to ride their mountain bike up and down these hills. Some of these kids have never rode their bike on a trail before in their life, and they're trying to figure out, okay, now how do I try this new thing and get out of my comfort zone? But, I think kids need that. Kids have always needed that, but they really need it right now.
Yeah.
It gives them some responsibility, like, oh, I can be part of something bigger. And Mother Nature's big. She's a big lady, with so many parts. And when you can feel part of it and accomplish something, right? Isn't it doing something always? When you don't do anything, I always say this on shows, my favorite quote, Joan Baez, action is the antidote to despair.
Right.
And I say that proudly today.
Mm-hmm.
Just going to say that.
Well, I mean, these kids went home tired, and they made new friends. And like I said, we fixed this section of trail because we talk about, like, you know, if you're going to be a user of these kinds of things, it doesn't just happen magically that this all gets taken care of.
Right.
You know? It's because people give of their time, their money, their expertise to maintain places like this. It doesn't just happen. And so if you're going to be a user, we're asking you to give back in some way.
Yeah, because if you're walking on the trail and you see trash, and you love this trail, you're going to go see, did this wildflower bloom? Now you're getting these connections. If you keep going back, you can connect to the land, like you do when you walk your garden. You know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The best thing about pet sitting across the country, one of them, the animals first, right? But you're pet sitting across the country, you get to be part of, like, nurturing the garden. And Nancy and I are out there like 3 times a day at least to make sure each plant is okay, you know. And then, are you going to bloom? Are you going to bloom now? Are you going to, you know? So there's that thing. And it's the same thing on trail.
We really do name them all.
Yes, we talk to them. And when you go on the trails, it's the same thing. You get to know certain plants. You know by the season what they're going to do, and you'll start to know that certain birds nest in this area. And you get to be connected in that way. And then if you go and someone has left a piece of trash, what are you going to do? Are you going to leave it for the nesting baby birds? Or are you going to pick it up and take ownership of that land? That's becoming a steward. And you guys really do it. You made a big impact. Personally, to me, I had a big impact. It just was it was an impact to my life going there. And I felt like I could again. And now I'm, just like every time I get your press releases, I'm like, I want to go back. So, yeah. Well,
I have pets that need pet sit once in a while. I'll let you know. You can come back to
Okay, we're coming. Hey, listen, we just played with donkeys. We've done donkeys, tortoises, guinea pigs, chickens, guinea fowl, cats, dogs. I know, it's fun. But I love what you're doing, Nancy and I both. And so we should have brought you on sooner. That's all I have to say on that. We should have brought you on sooner. But thank you.
This is great. Yeah.
Thank you so much. You've got so many programs. I encourage everyone to go to the website, asburywoods.org. One day we'll get Bruce Springsteen out there to perform. Just go out there. But it is beautiful. Also, if you go to Erie, Pennsylvania, go see our friends over at the Spencer House Bed and Breakfast, Lisa and Steve. They're awesome. And also, I remember Courtyard Winery. We went to the brewery. Oh my gosh, you have a ton there, and
there's lots to do
too. Yeah, it is.
There's lots.
I would say a very good family destination. Wouldn't you say, Jennifer? It's a family place.
Oh, it's a really family-oriented place and really a livable place. Like, so we have the 4 seasons, but you know what? I can be on the lake on my kayak in 10 minutes in the morning. And in the winter, I can be at a ski resort from my house in about 35 minutes. You know, it's like, it's amazing. And you just, if you just embrace it, you're like, wow, this is really awesome. I get to experience all this throughout the year.
And you can go to the Sugar Shack, right, when you're there. So visit Erie.com.
Oh, yeah.
That's the website for Erie, Pennsylvania.
All the maple syrup boiling.
I gotta give them a shout out. This is so cool. Like you can go on boats, you can do public art trails, and I heard, is this true? I think Chris was telling this. Chris from Visit Erie on the show. She was last year too. I thought you guys were all last year, but it's not true. Things blur by fast. But isn't it true? Like if you go shopping in Erie, you don't pay sales tax on clothes? Or something like that?
Oh, yeah. Pennsylvania does not have sales tax. I think there's a couple cities, like the city of Pittsburgh might, or certain counties, but in general, Pennsylvania does not have sales tax on clothes. So
listen, everybody.
That's a true story.
Having just been in the Pacific Northwest, I'm going to say that's a complete opposite. No offense to the Pacific Northwest, which is beautiful and awesome. But with all the prices going up and everything, you may want to go check out a state that's being really kind.
You can shop online,
and pre-pandemic, we'd have buses and buses from Canada come across to go to the mall and go shopping, just for the tax. Yeah.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
Hey, that's cool, man. I love that. And listen, it's things are opened up again, so hopefully that will all. You can see Canada from Erie. You can, depending on where you go.
Yeah.
You can see see out. It's a trip, man. We did that at the Courtyard Winery. He took us all into the vineyards through Welch's grape vineyards and stuff too. It was cool, man. I love it
on a
out
clear
there.
day, if you're up high on the bluff, you can see Canada.
One of our favorite experiences on the tour for sure, Erie, Pennsylvania, and we want to go back. AsburyWoods.org, everyone's the website, and I've got to ask you, a nonprofit, you have all these programs. Do people donate? Is that how it keeps you funded? I know you've got to get grants and stuff, but
Yeah, donations from individuals is a big part of our funding mix. And, people pay to come to programs and gift shops and grants, but individual donations are a huge driver of our budget that allows us to do so much free programming. So that is always something that we are appreciative of,
And also, it is Pollinator Week. It ends in a couple days here. And they do a very good job of, they have a monarch garden, a butterfly garden. They have bees. You guys are, the roof.
Oh my gosh, our bees have swarmed, I think, twice already this year. It's really fun to watch in our observational hive, because you see them. You're like, oh my gosh, look at all this activity. Yeah.
Cool.
So, it's a lot of fun.
Okay, we're coming to see you again. I can't I got to go back.
I'm coming too.
Cool. You got to come on, let's go for a road trip.
Margot, you will love it there.
Come on, Margot. You're going back
I would love
this year? Yeah, you got to go. It's beautiful. You will I couldn't believe it. My jaw dropped when we got out of the car. I had no idea. You know what I mean? So it is one of those places that are just, we have gems across America, and I'm so glad you're on the show, Jennifer, today, because really, I think we talk so much about negative stuff in the news, and sometimes I just we need these places to have the biggest spotlight, because you're making huge changes in the world.
It's not
and
all
for
doom
kids,
and gloom. There's far more good.
Yeah. Go to nature.
And we're lucky. I'm reminded every day all these smiling campers show up, and they're excited, and they're walking around with their, nature art, and they're coming in dirty and tired from hikes and exploring. So it's really uplifting to see all that positivity and kids excited.
And kids
happy.
with dirt under their fingernails. That's the most important thing. All kids need dirt under their fingernails. Well, so do adults. And I have dirt under my fingernails because I can't get rid of the donkey.
It's fun to get dirty. It's really fun to get dirty. I like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone, also, please keep up with Margot and her beautiful work. She talks about wrapping yourself in nature. Go to CarreraFineArtGallery.com. Of course, keep up with us at BigBlendRadio.com. Margot's on with the show with us every Friday. Every fourth Friday, I'll get my days straight. We do the Nature Connection show next month in July. We're going to be chatting with Sam Hodder. He'll be back on the show. He is the executive director of the Save the Redwoods League, and we're going to talk about some of the trail programs they've done. They've done so much for the redwoods, and Ez and I were lucky. We just went through the redwoods a few months ago, and if you got to go hug a tree, you got to hug a redwood, man. They're awesome. So we're going to be chatting with him. And because we're talking about Asbury Woods, so we had to go to Hawaii for our music. That's what happens. So we're going to play. Well, Makana is an amazing musician. He's one of the top 10 slack key guitarists. He's one of the top guitarists of the world. And I encourage you to go to his website, makanamusic.com. He's touring all the time. He's on tour now. One of his latest albums is A Hawaiian Interlude, and this is a song called Forest Walk. He is big on the environment. He has done so much for Hawaii. So we always want to play his music because we love it, but also want to thank him for all of his work. He is a musician that stands behind his words. What he writes, he stands up for, and not only performs, but he rallies communities together. He's done so much over the years. So aloha to you, and thank you, Makana. So here it is, Forest Walk. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for joining us.
Absolutely. It was great to talk to you guys again. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. You take care, and we'll pick you up soon. Okay, we're going to Pennsylvania.
Okay,
just swing by and grab her.
It's on my list.
Okay, good. But we're going to Hawaii first. Okay, so here it is.
That's okay too. I like that too.
Take care, everybody. Everyone, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us here on Big Blend Radio.
Mahalo.
That's the word I was looking for.
There you go.